Hello, sixth grade artists. Welcome to fourth quarter art. I'm really excited to work with you this quarter. I'm sad and I'm sorry that we're not in the classroom. I was really looking forward to working with you all at school. But you know what? We're going to make the most of it. My plan is to work through this quarter following the same projects that we would have done had we been in the classroom. There will be a few changes along the way because we don't have access to all supplies, but that is not going to stop us. There's loads of amazing projects we can do with supplies that we have around the house and outside, so that's what we're going to do. Each week I will post your assignment or your new project for the week in Google Classroom, and you can access it there, and there'll be a link to a video that will have information and or demonstration, and then you can post your project in that same Google Classroom by taking a photograph of it in the same way you're probably doing in your other classes, and then click turn in. There's also on the stream places you can post questions to me or to your classmates, and it will also give us a chance to see each other's work, which I think is really important during this time. So I hope that'll be a great platform for everyone to be able to share. The first project of the quarter will deal with graffiti. Graffiti is a great topic for discussion because it's illegal. And so there are some that would argue, yes, it's illegal, but sometimes it beautifies what people are painting on. And others will say, well, it's still a crime. And so that's a great back and forth discussion. Our focus for this project will be on a few street artists who have created art on buildings and such for different reasons. So we'll talk about them. So this first artist that you're looking at is the artwork of Banksy, and he is from the UK, he's from England, and you may have heard of him. He is famous, or sort of infamous, I guess you would say, because he's remained anonymous. So he goes around doing these pieces secretly, not wanting people to know who he is. So he's not trying to take sort of responsibility or claim it as his own, but he's really trying to convey a message. And so in this first one, Follow Your Dreams Cancelled, he's sort of speaking about in England the gap between people who have a lot of money. So in England, as you know, there's the royal family, and they have lots of money, and then there's people who are just working every day and things might be a little tougher for them. So a lot of Banksy's work is commenting on that and his frustration with that situation. And this is a little less political. It's just a little girl and she's screaming because she sees a mouse. But this is an important one because you can see this is a stencil. So Banksy obviously has to do this quickly. So he will often take a large piece of paper and then cut things out and lay it on top of a building, in this case a brick wall, and then superimpose it that way. He's got to get in and out quickly because he's doing these on places he's not supposed to. This is one piece he's quite famous for because, again, it's that statement, this little girl's sort of lost her dreams and her heart is floating away. But his images are often really simple but striking with a message. There's another one where he's using the brick wall as part of his piece, and here's a woman in a sort of old-fashioned traditional maid's outfit, and again a commentary on that people who are having to do this work, and then who they're doing it for. This is actually sort of a self-portrait. So this is Banksy. This is often how he's been photographed. He's always wearing a hood, and he often has a scarf over his face. This is pre-coronavirus, so that's not why he's doing it. It's just to cover his face. And this dog actually is an homage to another street artist that we're going to talk about, Keith Haring. So we're going to switch to Keith now. Keith Haring is an American street artist, and if I had you in second grade, we talked about him during that time. He was one of the very first street artists to get acclaim, and he started by creating a piece in the New York subway. And the subway in New York goes on for miles and miles and miles, for so many walls, empty walls. And so he was illegally doing art on it. And so I'm not trying to justify what he did, but there's lots of blank walls. So it's a little bit of a different situation. And someone had a video camera. So this is pre-iPhone in the 1980s, when somebody just happened to have an actual movie camera, and they taped him or filmed him creating images on the subway, and then sort of shared that around. And that is how he gained a lot of his popularity, because people saw this video and then they started hiring him to do work. Keith Haring was a very successful artist. His images are very simple in that they are using black lines to outline either people or images. Again, they don't have details in the face, sort of trying to show that connection that we all are the same, that we all have heads, that our faces look different, but that we all are the same. So we're sharing in that, and they're often very bright and colorful. Let me go back to this one, and showing those images. Keith Haring passed away when he was quite young, and when he passed away, he left a lot of his money, and he'd made a lot of money at that point. He left a lot of it to children's education. So he was in New York at the time, and his foundation, the Keith Haring Foundation, sets up the availability for children to take art classes. Keith Haring felt very, very strongly that everyone should have access to art. He felt like no matter where you lived, you should be able to see art, whether it was a museum or on a building, or if your artwork was on a coffee cup or in a calendar. He wanted people to see art, and especially he thought that was important for children to have access to art. And so that's why he donated so many of his dollars to arts education for kids, which is a wonderful legacy to leave behind. He must have been a great person. This is not Keith Haring. This image is, I'm sure you know, President Obama, but the street artist who created this name is Shepard Fairey. And Shepard Fairey was doing street art before he created this Hope piece of Obama, but it's absolutely the thing that made him the most famous, and again, a little infamous, because the story behind this is that he created this not knowing at all how incredibly popular and how seen it would be. I think there's probably, as you're watching this, I'm going to guess that all of you have seen this at some point. And Shepard Fairey actually took this photo from a journalist and then superimposed the colors. He didn't, again, know that he would be making money off of it or that it would be so popular, but he was sued by the journalist because he didn't ask permission. And so this is an image that Shepard Fairey made of himself. This face is Shepard Fairey, the artist, and he's saying that he was guilty. They did settle the case. He admitted wrongdoing, though it wasn't intentional, and it was all worked out, just so you know that. But that is Shepard Fairey, and this image has been used in all sorts of things, from R2-D2 to just images of different people. So it's a really iconic piece of American street art that Shepard Fairey is responsible for. So those are the pieces that we're sort of drawing inspiration from. What we're going to do is we're going to create names. And so these are some past pieces, and I'm sorry, some of these photographs are not the best. It's my photographing them. But basically, you're going to be doing your name in a graffiti style font, and then you're going to incorporate some sort of foreground, middle ground, and background. And you can see in just even these few, they're all completely different, and that's great. That's what we want. Some of them are names with images. Some of them are names with things like a landscape or trees. And some of them are trying to echo what perhaps a real piece of graffiti like on a brick wall would be. So what you're going to do is you're going to create your own version of it. So one of the challenges that we're going to face during this quarter have to do with supplies. I know that we all have different supplies at home, and so each time we do a project, I will try to give you a lot of options so that you can use whatever you have around. I will also say that if you have supplies and you've left them at school like I did and you'd like to borrow some, please send me an email and I am happy to drop things off. I was able to get into our room and I pulled as much as I could. I don't have everything, but I pulled a lot of things. So if you need to borrow, say, a watercolor palette or some colored pencils or something, please let me know, and I'm happy to drop those off. So you can see these are very large. Obviously, most of us don't have that paper at home, including myself. So there's a couple different things you can do. you can just use our normal 8.5 by 11 copy paper that we have at home, maybe from a printer. And the goal here is to create your name across the paper like we've done here, and with bubble letters. And so bubble letters are any kind of letter that have dimension or form. Form being one of our elements of art, one of our 7 elements of art that give something the look of being able to pick it up. And so if you have done loads of bubble letters, great. If you're like, what? I haven't done that before. All you need to do is this regular letter, and then you just follow the leader around that line on the inside. And that's a very simple way to do a bubble letter. I will send you some links with this of different styles of graffiti font. There is no one right graffiti font. That's the whole idea behind graffiti, right? You're sort of expressing yourself. But there are loads of different examples, and I will send some links. You can also just Google graffiti font, and you get a ton that come up. And so the challenge for this, no matter what size you're doing this on, is to make your name cover the size of the paper, whatever that is. So that's actually the sort of the artistic challenge here, because if you have a long name, you have to make it a little smaller. And if you have a shorter name, you have to sort of spread them out. So the goal is to fill in the paper. Then you're going to decide what's going to be in the foreground, in the bottom, in the middle ground, the background. And as you saw in some of the examples, and you can flip back through if you wanted to do a landscape or a cityscape, some other ideas from previous quarters. Maybe there are some things that you love to do that you'd like to include. Maybe you play the piano, and so you're going to include a piano and some musical notes. Maybe you play a sport, and you're going to include that in front there. Maybe you love to dance, and you're going to incorporate that somehow. This is a great opportunity for you to tell us some things about you, and that can go in there. So color-wise, in the classroom, what we did is we did pastel, Sharpie, and watercolor. Again, we're all going to have different things. So you want to do any combination of that. The benefit of the watercolor and the pastel, as you'll recall, is that it's a resist. So the letters in this are pastel, and then if you paint over it with watercolor, the pastel resists it. That same technique will work with a crayon. So if you have just an old box of crayons at home, that will work in the same way. What I want you to do is challenge yourself to use whatever color coloring mediums you have in the best way that you can. There's no right or wrong. You just want to fill in your whole space. Another option, if you wanted to do a bigger version of this, would be to take 2 of your pieces of copy paper and tape it together on the back to make it a little longer. That's another option if you're looking for a bigger piece. I know it's probably unlikely that any of us have those giant strips of paper at home. I definitely don't. So, but I've often taped paper together to get a bigger piece. So that's a great way to do it. I will also be sending you throughout the week just a drawing prompt, which just is something for you to think about and do some free drawing based on that. So be looking for that as well. Again, if you have any questions, please email me, and I can't wait for our quarter. All right, thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.